Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the NXTGEN podcast. I got my boy here, Robert Torres, soft tissue therapist of Elite Therapy. Thanks for coming, man. I appreciate you pulling up.
Oh, anytime.
Yeah, man, of course. All right, so check it out. So, you and I just got recently acquainted. So, and I don't really know the extent of your story, but I would definitely want to hear. You said you have some things to say, so I definitely want to hear about your upbringing. You know, where'd you start, and then kind of work your way up to where we're at now.
It's kind of oh man, I can't believe we got it already. I mean, it's kind of a long story. I mean, we kind of have time, but I was born in Tarzana, California. My father was from El Salvador, and my mom was a second generation Angelino.
Got it.
And my father had moved up to California during the Civil War in El Salvador, and eventually came to LA.
What year was that?
I want to say somewhere between 80. I'm going to say 1980 to 85.
Okay.
Around that time.
Okay.
And my dad learned upholstery work. That was a skill that he learned. And my mom, she had a kind of difficult upbringing, but fast forward, I was born in Tarzana. My sister was born in Arizona, so I kind of grew up in Arizona for 10 years or so.
Okay.
The reason why I came back from Arizona was my father, he had passed away of liver cancer.
Okay. Wow.
And my mom's past upbringing, she had some challenges with drugs, and she had lost her father to cancer. So
wow.
On top of my father dying, it had some challenges. So it brought me back here. And then I grew up with a lesbian couple. So I went from two parents to a lesbian couple, and it was a family relative. And I was the only guy in the house.
Right.
So predominantly most of my life, I kind of, from 12 to 18, I grew up with all women in my life. And had a kid at a young age, kind of got kicked out of the house, and then right after high school, I knew college wasn't really for me. I knew I wanted to do something in sports, but I didn't quite know what that was. And I was working on family members' feet, picking up $20 here, and just kind of built the strength in my hands. And that kind of had my daughter, and was going through school, and had a little bit of a challenge, but was eventually kind of able to overcome some challenges and kind of continue on. I've 4 kids, been married 17 years.
Whoa.
I know that's kind of crazy to hear in California.
It really is.
Some other, I guess, with that being said, I've unfortunately seen a lot of people pass in my life. I had a colleague die of suicide, had a colleague die of leukemia. My mentor, who got me involved in sports medicine, I kind of refer him to as my adult father. He was a Jewish guy from Brooklyn, New York, which, he was just a different kind of person. And he kind of taught me tough skin, and he gave me the nickname The Kid, because when he met me, I was just a kid.
Yeah.
Actually, my wife got me a pennant that says The Kid on here.
Oh, dope.
And he unfortunately passed away of prostate cancer on our wedding anniversary.
Oh, wow. And
because he was Jewish, some of the challenge was it was during the pandemic, and can't have the body embalmed, from what I understand.
Oh, wow.
So, he wanted to be back in New York.
Right.
So it was tough. You couldn't really get to New York. And I know in the faith, right, you get buried pretty quickly, and there's a process. But unfortunately, we weren't able to have a service for him.
Wow.
And so his body was eventually transported to New York, and I hope to go there one day.
Yeah, of course.
And see, he where he rested, and he was from New York, and New York is a different city.
Yeah. No, totally. Wow, that's incredible. Wait, I gotta peel some layers there. There was a lot over there.
Yeah. I didn't know, this is new for me, so I apologize.
No, don't apologize, bro. You're telling your story. Can you, if you don't mind sharing,
Yeah.
what was the transition like when you said you got kicked out of the house,
Mm-hmm.
and then you were you essentially had new guardians or new parents, right? You said a lesbian couple.
So when my father passed, my mom, I saw a lot of things. It was kind of a hard start because my 7th grade year, my mom was, my 7th grade year, my mom was in rehab. She had relapsed. And then my 8th grade year, kind of around that time, my dad had passed away just before I started my 8th grade year.
Wow.
And so my mom had challenges staying sober. And just couldn't, there was clearly no stability. I didn't understand what it was. But things were difficult.
Yeah, of course.
And I went with a guardian first, and then it was eventually her cousin who took me and my sister in.
Got it.
And really provided for us. And it was great to be with a family member, and also I was born in California, and I think the good thing about what had happened is we were kind of given a choice of where we could go.
Yeah.
We could have gone to, from what I remember, my dad's side of the family or my mom's side of the family.
Right.
And so I remember someone asked me, like, where would you want to go? I was like, well, California.
Yeah.
And my second cousin, I was very close with her as a kid. She meant a lot to me, and she was kind of like my mom's best friend growing up as kids.
Got
so it just kind of made sense to come back, and it was definitely different. As a young man, and it was her wife, their 2 daughters, my sister. So I dealt with ages from newborn to 42.
Yeah. Damn.
And it was just interesting, being the only guy in the house, but it gave me a lot of good skills, because I think that's why as a soft tissue therapist working with female clients,
yeah,
I really try to create a safe environment.
Sure. But so being a teenager with surrounded by, what's it like being a teenage dude surrounded by females?
It was, with my cousin, it was kind of funny because, my second cousin, she was we'd go out in the mall and for fun, we're kind of checking out girls at the same time. If you think about that, it's you can never do that with your mom.
Right.
Right. Oh, how's that young girl at high school, but I remember a very vivid time where I was, we were at the mall and she's like, "How do you think that girl looks good?" I'm like, "Yeah, she looks nice." But I'm doing that with, it was those kind of dynamics where
Yeah.
I definitely enjoyed that part, and it's not a dynamic that a lot of people kind of grow up with.
No, totally, absolutely not. I can't. Not me.
Right.
No chance. Okay, damn. So, okay, so you have your first kid. Is this with the same? Is this with your wife now?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So you guys were together since.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you had your first kid, and then the people who you were living with at the time were like, "Nah."
It was tough because family dynamics was interesting. There was definitely, I think, a path that I think a certain path that I think certain people wanted me to take was go to college, go do that, and get relationships. And I don't know, maybe I was young and dumb at the time, but I just felt like I may have never taken responsibility up to that moment. And I thought maybe it was best to finally take some responsibility, you know, because I wasn't like, you know, I didn't do drugs. I didn't do, you know, I got fair grades. I wasn't like, you know, an academic or anything, but I just felt maybe, you know, maybe it was signs of like being told like, you're not taking responsibility for this. You're not, you know, a kid changed your life, you know, because it's not about you anymore.
Exactly.
It's about who you have to provide for.
Yeah.
And I think when that opportunity came, you know, it just didn't work out, and that's what was maybe the best decision that was made, you know. And you know, I had some places to sleep for a few days, and you know, eventually, you know, I think from a car to a closet to a Winnebago, you know, I was able to get a room somewhere.
Wow.
But you know, when adversity, you know, comes your way, the best thing you could do is just try to navigate through it, and like, you know, I saw the path my mom took, so it was kind of like, I do have a choice on this. You could quit, or you could just try. You can't worry about tomorrow. You got to get through today, and tomorrow will come. And so I think I didn't know how to vocalize it at that time. I just think I was just kind of just doing it. And
Yeah.
because I knew I wanted to do something sports related, like, you know, I was working like a full-time job at like a part, like I think they were like a warehouse distributor for like car parts. So like all the shops that when they get their inventory, like this place had trucks that went to go deliver it to them.
Got it.
So after that, I was finishing my hours at massage school, and then eventually, that led me to finding my mentor.
Yeah. And that was all here in LA?
I was like, here in LA.
That's dope.
All in LA.
Damn. That's cool, man. That's a hell of a story. I'm just like visualizing it, you know? It's like, that's a movie right there.
Well, I think it's, you know, it's tough because, I think prior to when we started, you talked about injury.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that's where I think sometimes I kind of connect with certain athletes. You have a choice to do something for yourself. An injury can be very depleting. And I remember the first injury that I saw was with athlete on the Rams. It was the first football game I went to. He got injured. And I almost had a superstition not going anymore. And I just, you know, I looked up some motivational books, and I just bought him one and I gave it to him.
Wow.
And he, you know, he himself was a very inspiring individual.
Yeah.
Because of adversities and challenges. So, you know, he was able to, I think, come out of it as best as he could.
Yeah.
He was able to play, I think, again. But, you know, I saw him grow in other ways, and he owns a restaurant now, and he's doing good for himself.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough with the injuries. Like, it kind of like forces you to figure something else out, you know?
Yeah.
And you have to, not only from like a emotional perspective, but like you may not be able to do that thing you were doing before. And like coming to terms with that is rough.
Yeah.
That's terrible. Yeah. Okay. So you meet your mentor, you go through all the things, like you're getting your reps in. Mm-hmm. Where'd you start? Like, what was like your first, did you ever have like a first job, like in soft tissue work and massage? Or were you always on your like independent?
So I think there was a club at the time called 360.
Oh, okay. On Reseda.
Yes, on Reseda.
Okay.
It used to be Mid Valley Gym, and this all funny. It's you asked that question. I'm thinking about it right now. Like this all happened within like a year or two after I graduated.
Oh wow.
And this is the only time I'll probably brag about something is like my superpower is timing. I don't know how. It just things tend to find me in the right place. Maybe I put that energy out there, but looking back at it and remembering it, I think one of my relatives had told me there was like a coach who was looking for a therapist because he would bring in some group of guys, and I just kind of heard like NFL Combine, and one of the reasons why I got the job was because, and this is something I learned later, was they had therapists there, but they were overcharging a lot for these college kids. You know? And I didn't know what a combine was at the time. So the strength coach I ended up meeting was a guy named Travell Gaines, who kind of hired me, and, you know, I was working for like $50 an hour, and I was working on like 5 or 10 guys. And then just around that time, I want to say I met my mentors either right before that or after that, and I met him just around the Beijing Olympics. And he was an athletic trainer and chiropractor for Team USA.
Oh, wow.
And he had been on a few teams prior to Beijing. And so when he came back from Beijing, he had introduced me to like 1 or 2 track athletes.
Got it.
And I worked on them. And then they were like, oh, could you come to the track? I'm like, okay. And that's what kind of catapulted me into these opportunities and really taking advantage and looking at it as a whole picture of not just the job, but the elements outside of that job. Agents, strength coaches, coaches in general. I would say that was the moment where, like, I was very curious. I'm like, this is where I want to stay in. How do I keep going?
Yeah. So you would, what was your mentor's name, by the way?
His name was Glenn Lowenberg. Dr. Glenn Lowenberg.
Got it. Okay. I haven't heard that name, but now I want to look him up.
Yeah.
No, it's great. So you were, so I've seen you on the UCLA track, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So is that the track that they invited you to go to?
So originally, it was a coach named John Smith, and they train at a West LA college.
Okay.
That's kind of where I eventually gravitated towards. So I, you know, David, if you know track, like at the time, you know, David Neville was a 400-meter runner. Tyrone Edgar ran for Great Britain, and then Carmelita Jeter, she ran for Team USA, and like that was probably like the core athletes that I really started with.
Wow.
Which eventually led into me working with track and field at UCLA for a few years, and then another group that was training there with under Bobby Kersey, which was Allison Felix, Karan Clement, Don Harper, Kenneth Ferguson. Those were his core athletes. So eventually, like, led me from like West LA to UCLA.
Cool.
And then just that path kind of always stayed around that time.
Yeah. No, it's incredible. I love hearing that. So, okay, so fast forward to now, you're working with track, and now you've been working with the Rams for
This will be my 5th season.
5th season.
Yeah.
Wow. So, connect those dots. How'd you go from there to there?
So I've told this to a lot of people, and this is gonna sound crazy, but the person I have to thank for is Antonio Brown.
Oh yeah, really? I think you might have told me this already.
I told you the story. So kind of like before I start with that story, like I had actually taken a hiatus from massage for a little bit.
Okay.
And the reason why is like I went broke, and I made some young decisions and didn't think about some other factors.
Okay.
And it led me to working with that same family that I had grown up with and learning some skill sets and new opportunities away from massage.
Okay.
Like business, how to be personable, how to, you know, a lot of the stuff I had to do over the phone. So, and then thinking outside the box on business of recruitment and how you say things. So when I met Antonio Brown, I was still working a full-time job, and I was still taking clients, but I just couldn't take
that many.
What
was the full-time job?
I did high-risk merchant services.
High-risk merchant services. What does that mean?
So what that means is like your standard credit card machine that you see at a retail place, Like, that's what's considered low risk because it's face to face. We did high risk, so that meant we provided services for unique businesses such as travel agencies, collection agencies, CBD, adults, like things that you can't, like things you would, Nutra, like, do you remember back in the day, like, oh, try these pills for 7 days.
Okay.
Free trial.
Right.
And they're
Right.
going to bill you every 30 days for $150.
Right.
That was considered a high risk business because they brought on certain risks because of how they did business.
Got it.
Such as a collection agency, like someone's calling me out of the blue, collect the debt. So I dealt with those industries.
Got it.
And so that's kind of what I did for a bit of time.
Got it.
So I got a call to work in Antonio Brown, and that's where he was. Now I think about this, he was out here for Dancing with the Stars.
Ah, okay.
And the guy who recruited, the strength coach who reached out to me was a guy named Matthew Uehara.
Oh, you told me about him.
Yes.
Okay.
And so he's like, can you go see him? I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. And so I saw, while I was working 8 to 9, like I'd see Antonio Brown at like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. And I go to work the next day. And what led to that was, so I worked with him that year. He had come back to LA again, and I was working with him for the summer. And the guy that was training with him was a gentleman by the name of Kayvon Webster. And Kayvon had recently been acquired by the Rams.
Mm.
So when I was working with Antonio Brown, I was working with Kayvon, and Kayvon was like, hey, could you essentially work with me for the season? I'm like, all right. And then that he referred me to Todd Gurley, and then another great athlete named Mark Barron. So I was working with like 3 guys for that season. I think it was 2017 maybe. And then again, timing. About a year later, I get a call from Reggie Scott, the athletic trainer, and he had called me to see if I wanted to work with the team.
Yeah.
And Todd gave my information to him.
Wow.
And came in and met with Reggie and been there ever since.
Wow. That's dope. So what's the capacity? Like you're not on the staff. You're like
during
go
the
ahead.
season, like right now we just Sunday is the last day for training camp. So there'd be a period of time I'll probably be there like every day for a few hours later towards the end of the day, and then when the season starts, it's usually like once a week.
Okay.
And then they may throw in if there's a shortened week for them, they'll consider it like a recovery day because of the time they have, and
Right.
then they may bring in additional therapists to like flush them out.
Got it.
And then that goes until primarily the season, and then obviously it's week to week depending on how the playoffs work out.
Right. Cool.
Yeah.
That's dope, man. All right. Do you have any, speaking of AB, or maybe any of the players, but are there any like highlights or like funny stories you got?
Let's see.
Any like funny interactions with them?
With Antonio Brown, it was just more of like, it was just working late nights, but it was like how much time he put in to working out. Like he'd have, I don't know, he would have training in the morning for a few hours, then training later in a few hours, and then more training after that, and then his recovery. I'm trying to think like of a memorable story. There was a moment where I was working one night and another individual was there, working, like not a therapist, but was working on him at the same time. And I'm just kind of like, what's going on right now? Like, I'm there for work, but I don't know what she was there for. So, like, it lasted like a few minutes. I was like, can you not like not do that again. Like, I don't know what that dynamic was.
Yeah.
But I just saw like she was kind of coming in and she felt compelled to like, I don't know, work on them too. I don't know what she was there for, but I was like, this is just strange. I'm trying to think of another.
Definitely not a therapist.
No. I think with memorable, like I think one time I was working with someone, and I kind of walked into this house on Mount Olympus, and like all I know is they're just taking photos of just women in lingerie, and again, like I'm just like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Like, I'm here for work on one thing, and I'm walking into this photo shoot, which I don't really know what they were there for. Trying to think of like something like. I mean, just trying to think like what else was funny.
Sounds like there's a lot of inappropriate stuff going on.
I mean,
some fun
like
stuff.
athletes are,
Yeah.
like I think people forget is like, I have no judgment on anybody.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like for me, it's like
Inappropriate for workers, or whatever.
right, right. If it's like how I look at things like, you got someone who goes to a 9 to 5 and then it goes to a strip joint after work.
Right.
Like the only difference is, I somehow made like accidentally wasn't meant to be in that environment, but just walked into it. Not saying I was in the strip club, but like
Yeah.
those nuances. And
Yeah.
when you work late at night sometimes, which I would do, is like, listen, I've walked into an athlete who was just finishing a party on a Sunday and getting ready for a party like after I was done. Like,
Yeah.
One time, this was during the pandemic, a party was being hosted when you weren't supposed to have parties, and my only concern was like, is anyone going to be up? Because if you're asking me to show up early, like someone better be answering that door. So sure enough, 8 o'clock I'm there, people are up from the party the night before.
Right.
There's a house on the hill somewhere, and I'm there for 4 hours, and people just walking in, like headed over to the scenic, part of the pool, taking IG photos, and like I see like I don't know, 12, 15 bottles of like Don Julio 1942 lined up.
Yeah.
Partying like on I think it was Memorial Day weekend. So like,
and someone called you to the house for a massage?
It was an athlete who wanted me to work on him and some friends, but I did it for him because like I knew him pretty well, and he's someone I had worked with in the past, so I kind of trusted him. I was more of like, dude, if you're asking me to be there at 8 on a 3-day weekend, like someone better be up.
Yeah.
Because like I'm not gonna be at the door.
Yeah, chilling.
Right. Man, I probably got so many in the bag.
Yeah.
Like,
It's all right. You can let it marinate.
Right.
We'll circle back. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I'm sure there's all sorts of stuff going on.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you want to like? I remember you. I feel like you're passionate about the industry. You care about the industry, which I love to see. And I feel it. So tell me about like your recovery process, your recovery program, and like what do you value and what are your philosophies on that?
A lot of the recovery I learned was predominantly from track and field.
Okay.
And it was understanding a recovery time of what the coach had set into play. So like, I remember very well, like Monday, Tuesday was their days of training. Wednesday was an off day, Thursday, Friday training, and then they had the weekend. And so I learned a lot of like programming through that, because my understanding when you run track is fast twitch muscles. You kind of have to feel as optimal as you can. And there's this feeling of feeling flat. I know it's like a non-textbook terminology.
Sure.
But I would come across the timing of like, okay, when you're going deep on somebody, like the theory is that you're breaking down the muscular tissue of extensive training that they have gone through, and you're breaking them down so that they have that Tuesday, and then that Wednesday, kind of like a little bit, maybe like a 38 hours of like recovery time. And then by Thursday, they're really kind of good to go. And then Friday, we'll either do like a flush after practice, or we may do another breakdown. And that was essentially how I learned to understand when to apply pressure, how to apply pressure, what athlete. You know, sometimes there'd be, for traveling purposes, it may be tough because they have to go somewhere, they have to come back.
Right.
I learned about feeling flat through them, which was like, hey, you know, not too much because I have to like train tomorrow. And track athletes are very in tune with their body because they have to be.
They have to be, like, because it's not a skill sport.
Mm-hmm.
It's purely like everything that they do
Mm-hmm.
is going to translate directly onto the track.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Everything in the weight room,
Mm-hmm.
everything in practice,
Yes.
everything with you or whoever else they work with
Mm-hmm.
is like directly going to affect them. It's
Yes.
not like a basketball player, like, hey, I can get away with being sore because
Sure.
it's a skill sport. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? It has nothing to not that it has nothing to do with how you feel, but
Correct.
like you
Yeah.
can get away with stuff
Right.
if you're good enough at it.
And with track, it's just like there's no room for error.
Right. Exactly.
And
Margins are small.
very small.
Yeah.
And you got to think like they're running at a speed like when you think about like other sports of running, like they are running. Sprinting is just like that's so different. It's like that's their effort at a maximum percentage. If you want
Right.
to call it 100.
Yeah.
Where it's like, you know, they have to put a lot of stress on their body to do that.
Yeah.
And so when it came to working with track athletes, it got me curious on other things. Like, you know, eventually this is where, you know, meeting Travell was great because, like, I thought of, okay, the strength coaches, they're training these athletes.
Mm-hmm.
All I have to do is network with that strength coach
Yeah.
and build trust, establish myself of who I am. And once they know my body of work, now sometimes it becomes effortless because, like,
Right.
oh, I know who you are, or, oh, you worked with him?
Right.
Like, that trust and that bond is very quick. When I was starting off, it wasn't that easy.
Yeah.
But it got me curious, so I eventually met, like, out here in LA, a coach named Siri Lindley, who was a well-known triathlon coach. She trained a lot of athletes in Ironman, which I think they still hold. They have in Kona, Hawaii all the time. And I met her, and I learned about how she coached a triathlete through her programming of, like, okay, well, I know I go deep on track athletes. I know I can't do the same with triathletes because an off day for them may be running a 5 or 10K. So, like, I have to be very specific on, like, what's the area of concern and then what's just kind of like a mild flush for them.
Yeah.
So that they have the opportunity and window of time to perform when they need to perform.
Yeah.
And so a lot of programming is just based on communication of the athlete, of their wants and needs, and taking that into consideration.
Yeah.
And listen, like, some of it comes with a learning curve too. Like,
Totally.
you know, working on guys in the NFL in the off season, I have more room compared to the in season, right? You know, I saw something interesting on Amazon Prime where they were following Chelsea. I think Chelsea, yes. And the physio said, like, a soccer player takes 72 hours for full recovery. And I thought about that for a second. I was like, 72 hours for a soccer player. Imagine what that time is for someone who, like, is in football.
Right.
Who, like, it's a, you know, essentially a car accident every play, depending on the kind of turf they're playing on, whether it's grass or artificial. I've gotten feedback, like, certain artificial is very hard on the body.
Oh, wow.
And so, like, you know, you have to take in consideration, like, there's going to be areas that are tender and sore from, like, collision, and then, like, there's tissue that's sore from just the game itself.
Right. Work. Yeah.
And so it is taking consideration a lot of the time of like post game of like, okay, what's really concerned where it's like, hey, focus on this, get in there. What's just kind of like, we're firm, but we're just kind of washing over.
Yeah.
I think the hard thing about that is like there's no set, like there are books out there, but like I've never read any of those sports massage books. A lot of it was talking to the coach. A lot of it was talking to the athletic trainer. A lot of it was talking to people who like knew more than me, and I was able to understand and like apply it, and like that's what seemed to have worked
For sure.
and now it's just like, okay, you just take that in consideration of everybody else.
Yeah.
But what a track athlete does, what a triathlete does, are very different things.
Yeah. No, totally. So with that being said, are there like in strength and conditioning, there's a lot of certifications out there, but like for as right now as it relates to like sports performance, you would say the gold standard is the CSCS, which I think that's going to change soon because I think it's whatever, it doesn't matter. I think it's going to change soon. Is there such a thing for like massage therapy or?
Not necessarily. Like, I know in other parts of the world, like I want to say massage therapy could be a college degree that I've heard of.
Oh wow.
But like a lot of it, I guess you could say maybe like ART, so active release technique, would maybe be that version of it. But, that's something kind of that everyone, like a physical therapist can do, a chiropractor can do.
Sure.
When ART came out, it definitely had that effect of like, like this is different.
Yeah.
I think it still holds today, but I've never taken an ART class.
Got it.
I've always wanted to, but there's so many different like certifications out there. Sometimes for a therapist, it becomes hard of like what I think people buy into like what's gonna work more.
Yeah, exactly. But it's also like, it's just about where, when you're in. I mean, like in training, there's there's organizations, right? There's the NSCA, there's NASM, there's ISS or some shit,
Right.
Whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah.
There's like all these, like, I'm not gonna lie, when I see a trainer that's not NSCA
Right.
and wants to work with athletes, I'm like, not that it matters. I think it matters actually,
Right.
but like the credibility is like,
Right.
I wonder what that curriculum's like. Is it really, you know what I'm saying? So. That's why I asked.
So, like, I guess in listening to that comparison, like, I guess I look at it more of if someone hasn't done the initiative to at least go to massage school and is like selling a service that they're not really qualified to do,
right?
That may be equivalent to that. Like, going to massage school is essentially the thing that you must do because it's learning fundamentals, it's learning the basic things because you're touching people,
right?
And it's not, that's what it comes down to is you're touching people in an environment that whether it be outdoors or like in a more intimate setting where like the lights are dim and sheets, there are some people who just don't like do that initiative,
right?
And so that credibility comes into question because is this someone who's just looking for an opportunity because no one's really asking questions.
Right.
But to answer your question, like, massage school would be equivalent to a CCS in regards to like just doing it.
Got it.
If someone's practicing as a therapist, like, and the consumer doesn't really know other than like how they found them. Sometimes like they don't ask those questions.
Right. No.
And it's
totally
tough.
That's what I'm saying. I wouldn't know what I wouldn't even know what questions to ask.
Right.
Just because I don't know your industry as well.
Well, it's no different than like how many speed coaches are there.
Right.
Right. And like I've seen it. Right. There's abundance of speed coaches, but like You know, like, what is it about speed that they understand?
Right.
You know, because track speed and football speed are different. Basketball speed
Right.
is different than maybe it's, let's say, hockey. Like, you know, and every once in a while you have someone like Devontae Adams who says something interesting. Like, he doesn't do the stuff, if I recall, he doesn't do the stuff he sees on Instagram. Like, because maybe to him those things are not applicable, what you do on the field, because it's not
Right.
practice
Well,
per
it's,
se.
well, it's true. I mean, like, I get this all the time, and like, look, I'm no.
Say your piece.
I don't want to say I'm not an expert because even though I don't consider myself
Sure.
an expert, I still really think I'm better than 90% of
Yeah.
people that consider
Right.
themselves speed coaches out there.
Yeah.
And you're right. There's so many people doing speed stuff or
Mhm.
whatever you call it, and obviously I train athletes, particularly right now, high school kids
Right.
and younger, and I'll have parents come up to me and they're like, pull out their phone and be like, "Yeah, you should do this drill. Like, have you ever seen this drill, or
Right.
you know, have you ever used this piece of equipment or
Correct.
whatever?" And I look at the video, I'm like, "No," and I never will.
Right.
I'm just like, "No, I'm not
Right.
I'm never gonna do that." Like,
Mhm.
because I'm gonna teach your kid real speed. Like
Mhm.
when they when they go to college, when they go to the combine,
Mhm.
when they go whatever it is, it's pro agility,
Mhm.
it's the 40,
Mhm.
it's like your like max vert and whatever. Like these are the metrics that matter.
Right.
And doing whatever that drill is
Right.
is not going to apply to a 40 and whatever the things that are measurable
Right.
and things that like the things like where metrics are taken and
Mhm.
compared to your colleagues or your competition or
Mhm.
you know saying the other dude that's trying to take your roster spot or
Right.
whatever it is. Like I'm not saying that like some of those exercises are fine because they might be nuanced and whatever it is, but like we need to get you better at sprinting, so we're
Mhm.
going to do things that apply to sprinting, right? That's all.
So it's tough because, like, I've seen in private settings, like, I've seen a lot of different speed coaches, which, you know, what their background is, I have no idea, but I think sometimes it's like I read an interesting, it's funny, I read there's two different things I remember reading that are separately apart from each other in regards to what their message is. And what interesting about both of those books that I read was people buy an emotion first and logic later. So, like, if I told you I can get you faster, listen, sometimes I've heard, like, in even track where someone will maybe go back to their parent and train with their parent.
Oh wow.
Well, what does the parent know about track? Like, they may have been your track coach, and, you know, but, like, there's also maybe sometimes a difference between having someone to oversee you from, like, adolescence to 18, you know, body changes and,
Yeah.
you know, develops, compared to, like, after 18. You know, that's why maybe some coaches stay in youth, because that's what they're trying to grow. And, like, you know, that's why there's maybe professionals who handle those things beyond, you know, college or, you know, going into your pro career.
Yeah.
And so I've learned that sometimes sometimes it's not always about the metric of showing, it's about the belief that you can make me faster.
Yeah. No,
at any
totally.
capacity. So, like, if they're chopping their feet on cones, that looks fast to me.
Yeah.
You know, now, you know, as a thought massage therapist, like, okay, I may not know. I may say, like, oh, that seems practical, like, because, you know, if you look at football, right, there is cutting involved.
Right.
But, like, then it's like, okay, then they're cutting, going through some hurdles, then cutting again, then going through some hurdles. You know, I'm going to be as, like, from what I've seen, it's like, okay, you see someone do a route, it goes in this angle, it goes in that angle. The only thing that I think generally they're trying to always fight against is father time.
Yeah.
Which that goes into maybe the recovery process of, like,
Yeah.
how to have longevity, you know, whether it's through nutrition, taking care of your body. So I'm sure it's tough for strength coaches too, where it's like then you have maybe a personal trainer who kind of has the standard stuff, and NASM. I remember when I took NASM, it was like the standard of personal training, and they had a lot of great individuals that wrote that material. But you probably come across someone like who took like the training cert and is like, oh, I'm gonna make someone run fast. But it's more than just like the field work. It's like, okay, what's their weight training program?
Right.
What is that designed? How do you implement that with nutrition and like other factors?
And the time of year.
And the time of year.
Whatever, all that stuff.
Right. There's a lot of stuff that goes into just like, it's not just a copy and paste program that you could do. And then, if someone like injures themselves, well, how did they injure themselves?
Yeah.
Because, I'm sure there's times where a speed coach probably trained someone pulled something.
Yeah. What were the factors
right
involved? And
they probably didn't warm up enough. They probably, there could have been some variables into that.
Totally.
And this was someone they were supposed to go to who makes them run fast.
Right. Yeah. Well,
and your answer is, oh, it happens.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Oh, it happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't happen. I mean, like, it does, but, like, we can do better. We can do better.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I mean, that actually leads well into a term that, like, I'm going to say you coined it. I don't know. But you call it consumer protection.
Yes.
And, like, I like that. I like that a lot.
So I got that from doing high-risk merchant services.
Oh, okay.
So consumer protection actually is a terminology used because at the time there was this thing called zombie debt. What zombie debt was, this is what got a lot of collection agencies in trouble back 10 years ago. So there were organizations that oversaw these industries. And what was happening to people was someone would call up and say, hey, you have this outstanding debt. But there's also a statute of limitations depending on what state you're in. And through scare tactics, like, have you ever known someone who, like, got a call from the sheriff, oh, we're going to arrest your sister or your dad or your mom? Well, these agencies would use scare tactics to collect from people. And people would pay because of the fear of, right? And so that consumer protection led to, I think, the Consumer Protection Board. So there was, I don't know if it's still around, but someone could go to the board and complain about a company who, like, oh, they call and say I was going to go to jail, the sheriff's office was going to come get me. This happened to a lot of people. We're talking like hundreds of millions of dollars. And so what was funny is when I took the hiatus, like, I wasn't really using Instagram for anything. And between 2014 and 2018, Instagram wasn't really like something you shared. And maybe you saw a cool picture.
Yeah.
But just like anything else, it gave a tool for everyone to express themselves. And so consumer protection is a big thing because I'm a male therapist. And if another male therapist does has a different intention, that stereotype will follow itself because someone was in that situation.
Right.
And what do you think is going to happen when they come work with me? They're not going to work with me because of that bad experience. Now, not to say that therapist was licensed or unlicensed, but, like, I don't think people realize, like, I do think about this sometimes, like, yeah, I get referral, but then I'll have someone come reach out to me on Instagram. I was like, I don't know you, and you want me to come over to your house, like, and you didn't ask any questions whatsoever.
Yeah.
Like, if someone's touching you, like, this is a complete stranger, come into your house, they have your address, they go to your room, right? Like, it's so funny because I don't think people realize, like, do you know the person who's working on you?
Right.
If you just reach out of them out of the blue, and listen, I had to do a lot of background checks for what I do. I've had to get, I got a job at USC. I had to go through 2 different processes, one through USC sports medicine and then one through Keck medicine. Like, there are places that live up to a standard of, like, we want to try to vet out the person as best as we can to work in our facilities.
Yeah.
That should be no different than someone coming to your home. Like, here's a good example. If you had a painter that painted your house, would you let them change your oil in your car?
Right. No.
Why not? But they said they could.
Right.
Or it goes the other way around. The mechanic says he's going to paint your house.
Right.
Why not? I've done it before. Have you? Like,
yeah.
It's funny because that's where I think people, what they're going through, pain or discomfort, it may not matter. It's just like, can you help me?
Yeah.
And sometimes that gets thrown out the window. But people are buying on the emotion of this is going to help me. Because time and time again, if you look at anybody who's like made a claim or made a guarantee or anything of that nature, it's no different than strength and conditioning. Like, think how many trainers had said, oh, I could prevent an Achilles tear.
Right.
Okay. Then if that was possible, you should be busy. You should have everybody in the nation coming to you for that one thing. But if it was preventable, wouldn't everybody be doing it?
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's sometimes where people's logic gets a little bit lost. Is like, there are a lot of variables that go into coming back from something. You know, listen, I've worked on some people who had neck pain, were good to go. Probably didn't have to see them for a few weeks. Also, I worked on people who had neck pain, had to chip away at it a few times. Because maybe it's a stress component, maybe it's a postural component. Maybe, you know, there's environmental things that are, you know, that they're dealing with that is
right.
just beyond the muscular tissue. You know, how you deal with stress is a factor. So consumer protection is a big thing for me because it's like, you know, not only that, but let's say someone harms somebody, like, and what are you going to do? They don't have any insurance. You know, like, those, if a facility's asking for, if UCLA is asking for this, if the Rams ask for this, if USC asks for this, that should be no different than anybody else. And those are establishments.
Right. The only thing that's different is organization.
It's the organization, right.
Like, being organized.
Right. But like,
being organized.
But like, would you, you know, if you were asking for financial advice, would you go to the pizza man or are you going to go to your bank?
Right.
Now, let's say the pizza man made some good investments.
Right.
But, you know.
You would never know.
But, you know, but like, don't you at least want to go to somebody who, like, is at least familiar, has gone through a process of something, and, you know, kind of knows what they're doing, and they're touching you.
Yeah.
You know, and listen, I've heard instances where someone who said they were something ended up not being anything, and, you know, they ended up hurting somebody.
Yeah.
Because they didn't know what they were doing. And but that's not to take away from therapists who go above and beyond what they're supposed to be doing too, right?
Yeah.
I think sometimes that factor goes into I know everything.
Right.
And then being okay, not just saying I don't know anything.
That's the issue, is like, being good at what you do also means like you're good at staying in your scope.
Yeah, which is fine.
Staying within your scope.
And that's what I'm very comfortable with. Like, I worked at, you know, Athletes Performance, and that was the first time I had the experience, which is now Exos. I had the experience of a physical therapist overseeing the recovery or injury prevention or post-op, and then what the athletic trainer was doing, and then what they wanted me to do.
Right.
Because as a therapist too, sometimes, like, someone may come in with frozen shoulder, but okay, well, how long have you been dealing with this for? What have you been doing?
Right.
You know, are you seeing your physical therapist every day?
Right.
Or 3 times a week? And I've met people who like, oh, I've missed a few appointments. I've only gone like once a week, and I'm supposed to do what sometimes?
Right.
Like, I could alleviate the tension, right? But if you go back to your bad habits and don't work on the muscular tissue to go back into where it needs to be, then I tell people this all the time. If you want me to take your money, I will. I have no problem you paying me an hour once a week.
Right.
If that's what you want to do, I'm not going to say no to that.
Yeah. And
so sometimes I put it on them.
You should. It is on them, because, like,
no, yeah.
So much to say, but, like,
right.
Look, like, passive modalities get passive results. Active modalities get active results.
Mm-hmm.
Like, your role in the recovery process is like to give people access to do more shit. Like
Right.
whether it's relieving pain
Mhm.
or increasing like range of motion
Mm-hmm.
or whatever, like, or otherwise, like, or like tissue quality, whatever it is, like you're opening up doors for them to then go train or them
Right.
do rehab or whatever it is they need to do,
Mm-hmm.
right? And people have a hard time either accepting that that's true
Right.
or realizing that's true. They just
Yeah.
kind of want, because people don't want to put in work. And
Right.
I do get it, but also like if you are injured or if you've had frozen shoulder for X amount of time, and now imagine how much time it's going to take to get out of that. You know what I'm saying?
And it's tough too in that situation too, because that's why some people will lead over to that person who can cure them of pain.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm not eliminating the fact that, listen, I've helped people in many instances where maybe that was the right place, the right time. We had a major improvement
Right.
for that to happen. Again, there are other instances where it's like, okay, if it took 6 months to get frozen shoulder,
Right.
it's just going to take just as, it doesn't have to take that long, but if you make it take that long, it can take that long
Right.
to get out of.
Right.
If you're not very proactive about coming in,
Right.
doing what you need to do, and being on your way.
Right.
And I get it, like, sometimes, listen, everyone's strapped for time. That's also an element, too. There's a difference between someone who can maybe give an hour of tissue work compared to someone who only has 30 minutes. And that's a whole nother issue on, like, setups of PT offices or chiropractors offices, like farming systems, or compared to now there's more of like a concierge kind of format where they're giving the time. But going back to it, like on consumer protection, just more of like, don't hesitate to ask simple questions. If someone says, I'll get back to you, or give me a moment, or
that's crazy.
I don't have that right now. It should not be that easy to like present it. Or, and listen, like, because I've seen, I don't know, maybe it was merchant services that got me like agitated on companies that lied to people, but it's like, if I'm going on Instagram and asking like, oh, what massage school did you go to? And they block me, shouldn't be like, I'm not saying anything derogatory. I'm not saying like anything. I'll just simply ask a simple question. Hey, what massage school did you go to?
Right.
Blocked. Right. And that tells me like, okay, they clearly are just finding a way to make an extra buck.
We call them, I have a friend, and we call those type of people finesse gods.
Yeah, finesse.
They finesse the system.
Yeah. And listen, unfortunately, like, in the state of California, and to be honest, like, our certification is voluntary. So that's another problem too, is where, unlike a physical therapist or a chiropractor, like, our certification is voluntary. That means it's not mandated by the state. So if I finagle my name or my title, right, anybody can do anyone could try to do what I do. Yeah. And
I mean, it's kind of like training too. There's no one like out there auditing.
Correct.
There's no like, we have all these governing bodies, but they don't do anything. You know what I'm saying?
And which is crazy because before the pandemic, I'll never forget. Like I had someone from Equinox reach out to me about kind of like they wanted to go into like a sports. They kind of wanted to go into a soft tissue lane. So I'll never forget. I met up with someone at Equinox and going through the interview process, and he said this too. He's like, "Listen, we have a lot of complaints on male therapists," and I sometimes when people say that, I don't understand why. Because like, I just don't. It doesn't process for me that way, and as I was asking him a few questions, I was like, I'm just curious, like, okay, out of all the states that you get these lawsuits from, like, what state has the most? And he said California. And that's where I thought, like, that's where the consumer protection goes into it even more. First of all, like, if you're pretending to be a therapist, why would you even want that on your plate?
Yeah.
Knowing that California is very litigious, for anything.
Yeah, extremely.
Why even take that risk?
People just probably just aren't aware, and they're like quick to want to make a quick buck or whatever. But
Okay,
who knows?
But like, I mean, why like? That's where it doesn't process. Like, why even take the chance?
No, of course.
You know, I did around that same time. Someone who I've kept my eye on for a while, like he was the athletic trainer. Which again, athletic trainers, they don't have, from my understanding, they don't have a board. Like,
No, they do. They do.
They do.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh my God.
State, like a state though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry,
That's fine.
It's BOC. I forget. But
so I mean, in like the state of California. Like the state of California that oversees like so this was a topic that came up where so chiropractors, from what I understand, physical therapists, from what I understand, like you have to get a state board license through the state.
Right.
Athletic trainers, I can refer to myself as an athletic trainer.
Oh,
but
really?
I don't have the credentials for it.
Are you sure? You have to take an exam. I'm sure there are boards.
Yes, there are boards. But my understanding is, because this was an article I think that had come up in regards to athletic trainers being available for LA or just in high schools.
Right.
Like, maybe I'm wrong. I know it's
yeah. I don't know enough to say one or the other.
So, but the same individual was, called himself an athletic trainer. Okay, I mean, he didn't present anything on his website.
Right.
And then he disappeared, and like someone sent me his page again, and then he said like he was a chiropractor and then did massage.
Oh, jeez.
And I'm like, again, like, why would you manipulate someone's joint and take that risk?
Yeah.
Just for what though?
Yeah.
For money?
Yeah.
Like, are you not that talented in anything else that you want to do that?
Right.
I wouldn't even want to try.
Yeah.
Why put yourself in that situation?
There are a lot of self-proclaimed rehab experts out here.
Yeah. I mean, and that's also, listen, I do post, I'll do like a small rant every once in a blue moon, and I've had like a physical therapist or a trainer tell me like we deal with the same thing where, rehab is such a broad term.
Yeah.
It's so broad. It's like, okay.
I don't think it should. I don't think it should be.
Everyone does rehab now.
Yeah.
Right? That everyone does rehab, but like.
But those people don't know what rehab means.
Correct.
But yeah.
And listen, that's a challenge. I think and that's where I think sometimes you have to be a little bit vocal on those things. You have to call out. It's not about like. It's being cordial to say something.
Right.
You're not attacking someone.
Yeah.
You're attacking efficacy.
Right. Efficacy and like credibility. And you care for the industry, but like it's tough. Like being on social media, I try really hard not to post like anything negative.
Sure.
Because like all it takes is for me, because on the receiving side, all it takes for me is to read something negative. Like someone's gonna like, go on some sort of rant or whatever it is, and I'm just like, you know what, I don't want to see this shit, and then I'll either like mute them or unfollow them or whatever it is. I'm just like, I don't need to see that stuff, because like if you're having an issue with whatever, whether it's personal or whatever, like deal with that shit on your own. Like no one needs to see your business.
Yeah.
I mean, as it relates to like the industry, I care about my industry. I care about all that. So I do it like, I guess I do it quietly to myself.
There's no problem with it, and I think there's just a challenge at the end of the day. It's like interpreting what's that negativity is, and then what's professional criticism.
Yeah.
But like that's a conversation where it's like, okay, let's talk about it then. Like, all right, let's meet up. Like, I want to understand your theory. Tell me.
Right.
Tell me, like, let's talk about this then. And you give that opportunity, no one ever wants to take it.
No.
I've had people try to sell me things, and when I question it on a message, like, all right, let's meet up for coffee. I have no problem with that. And, like, I'll never get a response back.
Yeah.
And that was just about someone who wanted to sell me an item.
Yeah.
That was, like, massage related. And I had some questions about it because it didn't make sense to me. And then when I offered to meet up, it just never reciprocated back.
Right.
And so, people, like, I'm very vocal when I talk to people, but, like, I'm very behind the scenes when I use Instagram as just a tool of opportunity and networking.
Yeah.
Like, I'll reach out to a physical therapist, a strength coach, hey, let's meet up for coffee. Let's see what kind of synergy is like, you
Yeah.
know, because I'm looking how I did in merchant services. Like we would recruit agents. Those agents sent us the business.
Got it.
Strength coach, physical therapist, chiropractor.
Same thing.
They have people that need tissue work. That's where I come in.
Right.
I'm just doing it in a different way.
Yeah, you're just creating pipelines
There you
of
go.
business.
But
Same thing what I do.
But I don't think people understand how easy that is.
Yeah.
Because they're in their own thoughts about, well, what if they say no? So what if they say no? Like,
Yeah.
if you didn't have it, what does it matter?
Yeah. It's not even, I don't even think of it. I don't even like thinking like that at all. It's just like creating pipelines. I want to meet as many coaches, parents, physical therapists,
right,
massage therapists, whoever, anyone that could be a resource for me and vice versa.
Correct.
Like, so that we can help each other. I'm a pipeline for you. You're a pipeline for me.
Yes.
And you know what I'm saying? That way you have streams of business. Like,
so powering people.
Yeah.
Strength in numbers.
Yeah.
You know, it's like going to the snakes, you could say snake oil salesman or like someone who has credibility. It's like, I heard a good, I think, quote where it's like, if you do enough people wrong, they will band together and work against you. If you do enough people right, they will band together and work for you. So when you create a good community of professionals and your reputation speaks for itself, they're always going to want to support you.
Yeah.
Compared to like if you're kind of like the odd man out, and whether you're like the greatest thing since sliced bread, you better be living up to that every day.
Right.
Because if you do enough people wrong, they're either eventually going to like go away. They're not going to want to deal with you. And like, oh, I know someone who's better at this than you are.
Yeah.
So it's like, why even go that path?
No, people are always watching. And something I always say, and I actually don't know if I made this up myself, which I hope I did, or if I got it from somewhere else, but it's just something I always say is just oh my God, I always say is people always remember how you make them feel.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like when I think of somebody, like the first thing that's going to come to mind is like what emotion just came. Like, was I happy to think about that person?
Right.
Or was I thinking about that, like, fuck that guy, this, they did me wrong, and whatever it was,
It's hard to, and I say this, like, as far as I know, I have no bridges that have been burned.
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing to do.
It is.
And I think a lot of that I attribute to my experience in track and field, because there was a time where I saw like an athlete working with someone else, and I got very envious of it and got in my feelings. And then I thought to myself, like, maybe that's something that I'm not doing that they need. Should I be supporting that? And so once I went through that experience, I'm like, okay, like, I may not do this right now, but give it time. I'll learn that technique. I'll be able to apply it, and then I'll be good at it.
Right.
Compared to like, being, jealous or whatever, you could always go learn that thing.
Totally.
If you want to teach someone how to do Olympic training, okay, you may not be specializing in it, but you can go learn it.
Yeah.
And you can apply it to whatever it is you want to do.
Totally. And also acting on that emotion isn't going to help anyone. It's not going to help you, and it's not going to help the person that you want to be helping.
Well, I think sometimes it's again, it proves itself. It's our own insecurities.
Yeah.
We get insecure because we're not doing that thing, and maybe we're afraid to do whatever it is that, whether you believe in it or not. It's like,
yeah,
I'm just going to be angry.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I feel that for sure. All right, let's have some fun, man.
Okay.
All right, so I got this lightning round for you.
Yes.
All right, you can answer these questions these answers could be as short or as long as you want them to be.
Okay.
All right. I always love this one. You have a reservation at any bar you want for happy hour, and you got 5 people to invite, dead or alive.
Okay.
Who's coming to grab some beers with you?
Sean Connery,
Whoa.
Bruce Lee.
Whoa. Okay. I love
Uh,
those. Okay.
Samuel L. Jackson.
Mm.
What's his name? He was a funny guy. I remember as a kid. Jim Carrey.
Oh my God.
And what's his name? He always comes up every once in a while. He tragically, like, his death was kind of very tragic because his wife took his life.
Oh wow.
He was in like Jingle All the Way. He played. Do you remember Jingle All the Way, the movie?
I don't think so.
What's another movie he played? It's not gonna come to me, but like,
Okay.
he played he was on SNL for a long time. It was just like his nuances, and I think he played Frank Sinatra. He played Bill Clinton on SNL. He was an actor, and he tragically died, I think, in somewhere in the late '90s, early 2000s. But that actor, like, he'd be the guy I would want to have to deal with.
Sean Connery. That's a cool one.
Well, my father, like, was, growing up as a kid, he loved 007. And so I've always, like, watching that as a kid. It was just 007 and just the way Sean Connery was. And then, I actually went through a phase of rewatching those on Amazon Prime.
Ooh.
Starting from, like, the beginning. And just, something about being, like, the gentlemanness of kind of who Sean Connery presented to be.
Right. That's cool.
And then obviously one of my favorite movies was The Rock with Nicolas Cage.
Got it. Very cool. That's a great table. All right. This should be a fun one. Who are your 5 favorite athletes of all time?
5 favorite athletes. I mean, I'm gonna go with my 5 favorite athletes are athletes I've worked on. I figured
you might be biased, yeah.
She's always kind of looked out for me. She kind of, I always referred to her as my big sister, or adult big sister. Her name's Carmelita Jeter. Todd Gurley. They're all gonna sound very biased. David Neville. They all had something very meaningful, and that's why. Deshaun Goldson, and I'd probably say Quincy Pondexter.
Oh wow, okay, that's a throwback name. I remember you mentioning that name before too. Okay. Dope, man. Actually, it just came back to me. Do you have any stories? Do you have any stories worth sharing for any Todd Gurley stories?
Todd Gurley.
Anything meaningful there? Or highlights?
Let's see. One thing I loved about Todd, he was so great at, like, I would text him on, if you want to get some good entertainment, watch his post game interviews. Okay. And I would text him, like, the day of, and I was like, dude, that was hilarious. Because, like, he presented, like, he never, when they ask you questions, they're always trying to find something. And, like, his energy was almost reminded me of, like, Marshawn Lynch, but not as, like, not as Marshawn Lynch.
Like condescending?
I don't, maybe, but, like, it was just, like, it's how he shrugged the question off, or how he gave a short answer. Yeah. Or you could, if you pay attention to his facial expression, like, I thought they were hilarious each time he would do it. And I would, like, text him, like, dude, that was so funny. I'm trying to think, like, I think with him it was just, like, conversations we may have about football. Yeah. Like, understanding, I didn't really understand. I understood the NFL through the players. And then, when you work for an organization, it's like, the first effect that I ever had, I was like, oh, I forget, this doesn't last forever with some of these guys. They get traded, they don't get re-signed. Like, this happens on every team. Right. So I would say, like, nothing, like, with Todd, was just, I think it was more about conversations in the sessions.
Yeah.
And like, you know, we would joke around and shoot the shit. Like he was getting worked on, but also like we were laughing.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was very important to do in any session of like building rapport and making the environment, you know, better in that sense.
Yeah.
But trying to like, nothing. I think probably one time I think I've like tickets like you know I wonder I wonder I remember when I started working with guys like they only get a certain amount of tickets, and I think when I asked him one time like I always felt uncomfortable, and he's like, man, listen, if you don't he's like, my mailman asked me for tickets.
Damn.
The mailman, right?
What?
The mailman. He goes, and he just said it like this, Rob. He goes, listen, if you don't ask, someone's going to ask. And
that's interesting.
You know,
so when I was in the league, I definitely didn't want to ask for tickets because like you said, everyone asked them for tickets.
Everyone asks.
Yeah.
But when he said like Todd always
that's
would
really
make
nice.
Something funny like, man, listen, dude, the mailman asked me.
Yeah.
And it's how he said it. I was like, really? He goes, yes. So if the mailman asked him, I can only imagine the car wash guy asked him.
Right.
You know, it was just actually okay. So I'm thinking of a funny moment like, so I live not too far from him. I live in Chatsworth. He lives a little bit north, and I'll never forget. Like I was at Ralph's one day, you know, Ralph's, whatever, and I ran into him at the grocery store, and he goes, "Rob, what are you doing here?" I was like, "No, what are you doing here? You should be at Whole Foods.
Right.
I need to be here."
Yeah.
And he just kind of laughed, and like those are the kind of moments I would have with like Todd, like those kind of jokey things, and it was, you know, it was those moments I enjoy best with any athlete, and I'm sure I've had plenty of those with each of them, like those kind of things. So it's just, that's what I got.
No, that's dope. That's great, man. No, thanks for sharing. That's cool. All right. When things get tough, we'll get a little deeper. Mm-hmm. When things get tough, where do you draw your strength from?
I'll be honest, I don't know what that means. Like draw your strength from like what?
Like when things get tough, what do you think about to help you get through that moment? Is there somebody or something that you think about? Like, I don't know if you're religious, or I don't know if or if there's somebody that you call to get advice from, or a moment in your life that, you know, gives you resilience. And
I would probably, like, after my mentor passed away, I strangely found myself talking to other people.
Mm-hmm.
And talking to other therapists dealing with challenges, whether it be personal or professional.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd probably say like I have like 2 group chats in my Instagram where they're probably a total, I don't know, of like 30 people. One being newer therapists, one being experienced. And like some of the therapists I talk to, like when I talk to them, I have told them, like, I don't think you understand, like, this is my therapy. Like, me helping somebody is, like, my therapy.
Right.
So if I'm if I'm dealing with an issue, like, I'm inadvertently expressing a challenge, but they don't know what I'm going through.
Right.
Because, like, there may be surfaces I'll express, because I had this talk with an athlete recently. It's like, the tough thing about what you're going through is like who you're going to go to for that thing you're dealing with. Like, you know, if you have a member, let's say, who's dealing with a mental health issue that's more serious, like in depth of what that is, and then like someone who passed away, like could you go to the same person?
Right.
It may be tough because, like, how do you express that to somebody? You know, probably I would say, but I mean, the obvious answer is my wife. And I think as time has gone on, like, it's been better to be very open about how to deal with a challenge that we have to get through together. I don't know, like, because of maybe certain things that I dealt with, I never thought of, I just did it.
Yeah.
So I don't think I ever was like inspired to look into something like motivational quotes don't help me a lot.
Yeah.
They I see why they're inspiring to people, but because of negative experiences, like I just like, okay, I'm just gonna hit this thing.
Right.
Like I'm gonna come at this thing and it's not gonna defeat me.
Right.
So that's how I kind of maybe approached those things where whether it was that's that's where I would say I don't know strength. I don't know if that's a strength, but I don't know, maybe just believing that I can get through it.
Totally. Self-belief. Yeah. Totally. I feel similarly. I'm not religious or anything,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, I guess I have friend. I guess like if I were to answer the question, my strength is my belief in myself.
Mm-hmm.
But when my belief in myself is low, I call people.
Okay.
I have friends.
Yeah.
I have one or two, maybe three friends that I call
Mm-hmm.
to talk it out with, and so
Because you need a point of view,
yeah,
and otherwise you'll get in your head too much.
right,
And it's like, am I saying this because obviously I'm going to favor myself,
right,
or am I critiquing myself enough? You sometimes you need that point of view, like an outside.
totally. The validation, or even just like I need to just say this out loud,
Correct.
and hear. Just I need to hear it out loud, whether it's from my mouth or yours.
So
or
I'll
whatever.
give you an example. Like, okay, so maybe my biggest thinking about this, like, I am not afraid to really put my thought out there
Yeah,
and then be okay with whether it's positive or negative. It's just a grain of salt.
yeah,
Like recently, I was talking to a colleague, and I've heard this a few times. It was like first impressions, like, you know, I kind of heard this like in high school too. Like I would have a beanie on, and I would always be like this was my energy, right? But I may have not been like that, but as soon as you talk to me, we're cool.
yeah,
And and I was like, okay, let me put it out there. Like, do I come across intimidating? And it was funny. The responses I got was very interesting because I think people interpreted it like it was a business thing, but like this was no, I just want to get my perspective as a person, like that, and I didn't take it and I didn't take it as an attack either. It was like, no, like this is something that has come up, whether it be through family, whether it be through someone that I trust, and I was like, I want to see like what other people think who know me.
yeah,
I wanted to get that perspective and be okay. And what was so interesting is the person I talked to originally that came up in conversation, person I even met, the one thing that they shared was empathy.
hmm.
That maybe like I may not express that so much. And what's interesting about the professional who brought it up, like we've never met, but like in her experience, that's what she had brought up, and I'm like, oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah,
But I never took it like I don't take things. Maybe my mentor being from New York, like we joked about things that you can't really joke about anymore.
right,
And that tough skin was like, okay, unless someone's in my face, pointing at my face, and like saying hateful things, okay, maybe I'll get upset.
yeah,
But like, if it's things that like, I don't know, like, there's just that things on those outside rules don't bother me.
right,
It's maybe like when my kids don't listen, like that'll frustrate me. No, you're not listening. But
yeah,
but no, like thinking about it now, maybe being open about self-criticism is the strength.
hmm.
Is whether it's through I always want to make sure I'm doing a good job when I'm working with someone.
Yeah,
I'm always want to make sure I'm staying consistent on that.
of course.
But yeah, I'd say that's the strength, is like putting things out there and getting information back that I feel can help me to some extent. And it's not always about, I think we take those things as an attack, But I think when you go in with maybe it's just life experience, because I had some people who were like clearly on my side, but it wasn't a side thing. It was just no. This is as a person, not a professional. And hey, I appreciated the people that responded and were like, no, fuck them, and like be you, don't change, and like like I'll always have that energy. But I think sometimes, you know, who we are as a professional, as a person, sometimes two different people.
For sure.
Right?
Can be.
And it's hard to intertwine those things.
Yeah.
But also it's not to say that they can't share each other, because maybe it's showing a little bit of something different and being open to that change. So maybe the strength is I have no problems like, hey, if I'm gonna put it out there, like, what do you see?
Yeah.
Okay, let me know.
Yeah. No, I love it. That's good, man. All right. We'll end it on a lighter note.
Okay.
Or what's an album you can listen to, or album or two you can listen to with no skips?
Get Rich or Die Trying.
Ooh, wow, that's a great one.
Beg for Mercy. Marshall Mathers LP.
Oh, wow. I like it. I like the era you're in.
Lady Killer, CeeLo Green.
Oh, wow, I haven't listened to that.
And then my daughter, like, you know, rap is tough right now, but like, you know, Call Me When You Get Lost by Tyler, the Creator.
Whoa, okay. I haven't heard that name in a while. Tyler, the Creator.
I'm very, you know, growing up in the 90s, like, you saw the changes of music from like 90 to the 2000, and then, you know, if I was a teenager in the 2000s, so like from 2000 to 2010, like, you know, 50 Cent, Get Rich or Die Trying was just like Many Men.
Yeah. Man, I can't remember the tracks on there.
Hold on. Many Men. I was just like, when I was just listening to it, like, once the song came out, I probably didn't know the title, but Many Men Wish Death Upon Me.
Yeah.
Oh man.
No, there's a lot of good tracks on that album. It's a great album.
I think that album's because of like maybe Eminem being Eminem, but I think 50 Cent was because like that energy of his album I took with as a professional. Like,
right.
No one's coming at me with a gun. I get that, but like you could put that energy to like a doubter or like someone who's not giving you a chance.
Of course.
But that album, like, I would listen to, like, and I actually bought the album at Tower Records. So
that's cool.
You know, and I had that CD for as long as I could carry until, you know, CDs had a lifespan.
Yeah.
After playing so much.
They do. That's great. Duh, that's a fun one, man. You know what? One bonus one, because I feel like this is gonna be good. Damn, I want two more, but it's okay.
Go with what you want.
Yeah. All right. If you can relive one day in your career, which day would it be and why?
I would say getting the. I mean, I'd probably have two that I could think of, because I feel like I have such an abundance. It's crazy because, like, when I talk about track, like, nobody else knows it so much because it is an underappreciated sport, but, like, it has given me so much opportunity and knowledge to what I apply to. Like, I would honestly say the first was getting a call from Carmelita. Like, I didn't know who she was at the time. And the funny thing is, her name is Jeter, not Jeter. Because, like, Derek Jeter has, this, I think the spelling's the same.
Got it.
And I think I told her recently, like, I never forget when I called her, I was like, you know, voice message when people listen to them. It was like, you have reached Carmelita Jeter. Leave your message at the tone. And it was like, something about that moment was like, changed. It was maybe I heard the confidence in her voice. Maybe it was like I heard the determination, because later to come to find out, that's who she was. Like, she was, even when I got to see her as a coach, like, she had the same energy she had as a sprinter. So I would say that was the moment one. Moment two was really kind of getting the call from Reggie Scott from the Rams. Like, I still have that on my phone. I still have I've never deleted the voice message.
I wouldn't delete it.
Because
Yeah, no way.
one, growing up from 2000 when I moved back here, until the Rams came, there was no football team here.
Right.
I mean, unless you lived in San Diego.
Right.
And then, I had never been to a football game. And I'd seen a lot of guys in the NFL, but there was no home team.
Right.
And when I got that call, it was just like, man, I was 30 at the time, and I was just like, this is so awesome. Like, I had worked at UCLA, and that was cool. But, like, that just, like, maybe that for me was, like, I accomplished something that I was thriving for.
Exactly, yeah.
And then I achieved it. And then it was like, okay, what can I do next?
Right.
I had already worked on, like, gold medalists. I worked on, like, people who won Ironman. I worked on people that won Super Bowls. But, like, to work not only for the team, but, like, the team to call home, like, it was great. And then, that experience, eventually led to other opportunities. So, like, this is Power in People. Like, the therapist that I work with named Rodney, like, he considered me to be his alternate for LAFC.
Oh, wow.
Like, I've gone there a few times. They call me when they need me, but, like, that's also an LA team for soccer.
Yeah, exactly.
And getting to be in the facility and, working with soccer players, like, I'll never forget. Okay, you talked about a moment. So I was working with Festus Azili at the time.
Okay.
And he had asked me an interesting question. He goes, would you ever travel? And I'm like, why would I travel if everyone comes to LA? That some practitioners thrive for that experience. I did it once, and it was like, I didn't have, like, it wasn't what I thought it was going to, like, what you think it's going to be. Listen, some people fly in a private jet, whatever, but, like, like, there's 24 hours of the day. So, like, you're kind of doing assistant work.
Yeah.
If you're, if you don't have, like, an entourage of people, but that's what I ended up saying to him. And, like, why would I travel if everyone comes here? And, I've been very grateful and fortunate to reap those benefits.
Yeah. What did he say to that?
I think he was just like, no one had ever thought about saying something like that before.
Yeah.
And maybe, like, I don't know, maybe he thought I was going to say yes. But I think I learned from other colleagues, like, when you travel, you also get away from home.
Right.
And
exactly.
And that's
you have a family,
thing. Yeah, if I was single, probably I'd do it any day of the week. And I had no obligations. But, like, even when I traveled with USC recently, like, you could be gone for 3 days, you could be gone 4 or 5 days, maybe in a week. Like, it's still time away.
Yeah.
And, imagine some people who do that for a living. Like, you never really, you're missing those moments. And so I've tried my best to really stay here for as long as I can.
Yeah.
Now, listen, if the greatest opportunity ever came up, maybe I'd take it in consideration, but, like, it's always been hard because I've had people like, hey, you should come move to Texas. Dallas is awesome. Like,
right.
Yeah, it's awesome, but, like, I unless, like, someone's calling, like,
this is home.
This is home. And, like, it has its downsides, but when you're kind of, like, born and raised here, like, you kind of know where to go. You kind of know where to stay away from. So yes, that second was getting that call from Reggie Scott.
Amazing.
And every once in a while, I'll go back to it and, like, listen to, like, where was I, like, when I was listening to this?
Yeah.
I was at that job.
Damn.
Like, in the back, like, outside where people went to take breaks, like, and I was listening to that voice message, and I was like, man, like, I'm gonna possibly go work for the Rams. Like,
right.
And like, it was working hard, and you know, taking those chances, like going back, like, you know, Antonio Brown, I saw him like sometimes at 1 o'clock at night, like making that time, going and working a full-time job, and then seeing him, you know, and then still seeing some people that, you know, I still saw Carmelita, I still saw Deshaun, like I saw them obviously the times I could see him, but I still kind of chipped at it, and when the opportunity came for me to like move on, I eventually did.
Yeah, you stayed with it.
Just stay with it, and sometimes I think when you do get defeated, it's like, yeah, that wasn't a good feeling, like not having no money, and like, you know, I still wanted to stay in it, and I think I got a call once to work on Odell, and I was like, I couldn't do it because I just couldn't leave.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't have the opportunity, so like I lost it, which was fine.
Yeah. I get it. It's something like that's happened to me too.
Yeah, and so you get, but also at the same time, you also know you're making an impact when your name is getting out there.
Yeah.
And so that happened to me recently. I had someone reach out to me that I didn't even know through a trainer I never even met, and I was like, how did that happen?
Right.
But I think it happened because I spent the time to like go meet up with someone, have a cup of coffee, or, you know, have conversation and see if there's some synergy of how we could work at some capacity.
Right. That's amazing. I love it. Dope, bro. Well, I appreciate you coming out, man.
Hey, no problem.
It was a lot of fun, and I also appreciate you like sharing your story, man. You have a really, you know, compelling story, and I love to hear that.
Yeah, I think ultimately looking at it, it's like helping people.
Yeah.
At some capacity, and like, you know, bringing up something memorable is I was able to find my counselor who had helped me when my father passed. And it was 8th grade. His name was Mr. Snyder. And he had always been on my mind for like since I left. And what made it very compelling for me to him was, I think that first day I'll never forget, like he had told me he had lost his brother in a motorcycle accident. And something about that like resonated with me. Like he had lost something too.
Yeah.
I eventually found him and sent him an email, I think a few years ago. And like to see the email I sent to him, and then he remembered me. He's like, you know, the hardest thing is we never see where the kids we help, where they end up. They just don't.
Yeah.
You know, and he was just someone I just remembered.
Right.
And like, and I told him the things that I had accomplished. And like, you know, those situations probably weren't really in those deck of cards that I got. Either like you have a strong hand or you have a weak hand. Okay, maybe I had that weak hand, but like I figured out a way how to make that hand a little bit stronger.
Yeah.
And, you know, I had an option of taking a path. I saw how my mom lived her life. I saw how she wanted to go. And I think I saw like, okay, I could try to do this in a different way. It's going to take day by day. It's not going to be easy, but I know I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So let's go here.
Yeah.
And I still think that way sometimes. It's like, okay, that's not where I want to go. I want to go here.
Yeah.
And, you know, yeah, it's going to be scary to start off, but, you know, as long as you believe that, if you have the confidence in yourself and you believe in yourself enough, sometimes that's all you really need.
Yeah.
You could have no money. You could have, you know, I don't know, you could know nobody. But like if you have just that will, you know, it's just not gonna come. It's never gonna come in the time you want it.
Yeah.
And I think some people just have to be okay with it. Like, you know, the joke I tell people is like, I still got into the NFL with no injuries. Like I played football in high school, and like, you want to aspire to try to make the NFL, but you get humble. But I tell people that from time to time. I still made the NFL and got no injuries.
Yeah.
So I'm working on guys, like this season, with, working with the Rams, and I'm working with 3-4 guys on the Chargers. So, like, also an LA team.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's what home has provided for me. And being open-minded and trying to collaborate, and, it's definitely hard not to get in our own head about our accomplishments.
Yeah.
Listen, I just say, like, my resume speaks for itself.
It does, yeah.
And, I always want to try to work with someone at some capacity. They may know more than I do. And, like, I'm starting to see more of collaboration now than probably I did, like, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Where I think people want to try to open those doors and, okay, like, maybe you see strength coaches now, it's not just about a deadlift, a hex bar, and a squat. You see, like, maybe incorporation of mobility stick, pre-ab exercises,
Right.
Different forms of equipment that can help benefit. It's not so narrow-minded. And you see physical therapists kind of incorporating, like, strength training too, and other forms of modalities. It's not just, oh, we're going to put pads on and just do this.
Yeah.
There's more collaboration, more thought process of, like, how can we help this person with what we can do,
Yeah.
not what we should do.
Yeah. No, I've come a long way for sure. Dope, man. Well, once again, thanks for hopping on, bro. I appreciate
Anytime.
you. Yeah, man. It was fun. Cool. All right, guys. Check us out. Hit me with the with subscribe so we can reach more people. All right. Later.